Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Lend-Lease in the game Global War 1914. The game will be coming out soon, and so we're doing some videos just to make sure that you understand how to play the game. Most of the players that will be taking up this game will be ones that have already played Global War 1936, and many of the rules are the same, but some of the rules are changed, and also some of the rules have been updated from version 3, which most people have played before, to version 4. And where a lot of the rules are the same, we've tried to make them the same as the version 4 rules of 36 in Global War 1914. Some of them are a hybrid of that. But anyway, if you're not familiar with version 4 yet, and there's no reason to expect that you should be because it's not released yet, although it will be out soon, very soon now. But anyway, this video is going to show you how the things are different in this game than they are in 36 as far as Lend-Lease goes. So in the rules, Lend-Lease is defined as a system by which major powers may produce units for other nations without necessarily being at war themselves. Lend-Lease specific notes and restrictions are described on each player's national reference sheet, and also it's described in other places in the book as well, the rule book. That's just where it is defined at the beginning in the glossary. So to be a little more specific, major powers are allowed to Lend-Lease to other major powers and to controlled minors. Japan and Italy in this game cannot Lend-Lease at all, and there's a reason for that. Like we found, especially if Japan was a part of the Allies, they've got really nothing to do, not much to do after they take a few Pacific Islands, and so we found that in playtesting, players were just sending all their money away, like just giving it to Russia or somebody else, right? And that's just not realistic. Like Japan at the turn of the 20th century, they were interested in their own empire. They wanted to build their own empire. There's no way in the world that they were going to send all of their money off to Europe. I mean, they didn't really even like the Europeans much. And the Europeans pushed them around. You know, when it came to World War I, Japan wanted to take part in the war, but the Allies wouldn't let them. They only gave them a very small limited role, using their ships to patrol shipping lanes. And also they wanted to attack China, and the Allies wouldn't let them attack China. And so they really weren't happy with them. The notion that they would Lend-Lease their hard-earned money to the Allies, or to anybody for that matter, in Europe is laughable, really. So that would be just something that you're taking advantage of if you were to play that as a rule. It would just be a game mechanic, and we try to be a little better than that when we play Global War. We try to make things make sense where we can. I mean, we do want to make it so that it's a playable game, but we definitely don't want to make it where it's, you know, something that's definitely never going to happen, right? So anyway, Japan and Italy cannot take part. China obviously doesn't send Lend-Lease to anybody either. I mean, there's not a lot of money in there anyway, but they're busy fighting their own civil war down there, right? Between the nationalist Chinese and the warlords. And also, you cannot Lend-Lease to yourself or to aligned minors. So when I said you could Lend-Lease to controlled minors, that means that you can here, let's just take a look at something here. Let's go down to South America here. Now, let's say for the sake of argument, you see there that Germany has somehow managed to acquire Argentina. Whether it was through a random event or the diplomacy part of the game, or maybe they just outright attacked them. One way or another, Germany has got Argentina, and before America could go down there and enforce the Monroe Doctrine, they decide that they're going to attack Brazil. Now, Brazil would become a controlled minor for the Americans. The Americans would control them because America's not at war yet, right? And so that means that you don't change the roundels to American roundels in Brazil. They stay Brazilian, but that means they're a controlled minor. So the Americans, aside from being able to get a recruitment roll, like there's 3 territories, they'd roll a d12, and if they could get 3 or less, then they would either put 2 militia or I guess you would say colonial infantry in this game, 2 colonial infantry or 1 infantry into Brazil. That's one thing that they will do. But also the Americans, if they choose to, they could lend lease down to Brazil. So and you'll see in a minute what they can lend lease there. They can lend lease something to Brazil to fight the Germans off from attacking from Argentina. Anyway, let's move on to what we can lend lease. So in the rules upgrade that we have now for both version 4 and for Global War 1914, they have changed, and it's quite a big change from version 3 rules. In version 3 rules, you could lend lease a unit, or you could lend lease half the receiving nation's income, and that we found over the years of playing version 3 that, like it was unrealistic how things were happening, especially when it came to Russia. Like there was games that I seen where, Russia would receive like 50 IPPs a turn from their various people that were going to benefit from Russia putting up a fight against Germany. That just isn't realistic. It's not that they wouldn't have sent Lend-Lease to Russia. They just wouldn't have sent that much, right? So it was kind of abused a little bit. And I'm not knocking players for doing that. I do that too. It's just that that's not very realistic that would happen, right? So what can you lend lease now? Well, there's different things. So you could lend lease enough IPP for 1 full facility repair. Like let's say this major shipyard was damaged. The Americans or the British or whoever wants to could give the French enough IPP to fix that facility. So like if there was 12 damage on there, 12 IPPs worth of damage, they could lend them 12 IPPs specifically to fix that shipyard, right? So that's one thing. Or they could lend lease a military unit, and that's always good, right? Now the military units in this game, there's much fewer of them, and like pretty much the best ones we have in this game are certain types of artillery. So it would more than likely be an artillery or less, like some infantry type unit. And there's several different kinds of infantry in the game. One thing that you can't send though is items that were produced from the technology chart. Like let's say the British have armored vehicle technology, and so they can build tanks. They can't lend lease a tank to Russia, for instance. You're not allowed to lend lease units that take technology, and that's a change from version 3. You used to be able to lend whatever you wanted, right? Jet fighters or heavy tanks or whatever, and you can't do that in this game. I don't believe you can do it in version 4 either. You can't lend lease things that came from the technology chart. But like if you have a technology that makes shipbuilding cheaper, then that doesn't matter. I mean, you can build a ship for cheaper and then lend lease it if you wanted to, right? It's not like you're giving them a better ship. You're just better at building ships, so you can do it cheaper, right? So that's another thing. And also, you could build one base or a railway produced specifically for the purpose of lend lease. So like France, they could build a railway for Russia if they wanted to. When I say a railway, I'm talking about one specific link. I'm not talking about building a whole railway for them, right? Or they could build them, I don't know, a factory or some type of naval base, right? And then the last thing they could do is they could lend lease one militia or colonial infantry upgrade. So this game has not just militia, but it has colonial infantry. Militia are built in the home country, like you see this guy here. He's built in the home country of France. So let's say the Americans, they could decide to upgrade that guy. So you take this off for 2 IPP and you put down a full-fledged infantry. But in this game, like I said, you can also build colonial infantry, and they're like militia, but they're built outside of home country. So here we have a colonial infantry down here, and somebody could lend lease the 2 IPPs here instead and place an infantry down. Now this is the only unit that you could do outside of the home country, right? Like you could not, for instance, lend lease an artillery to this territory. The artillery would have to go to the home country. It is only the colonial infantry that would be upgraded here, because I mean, why would you send stuff to Paris, you know, to upgrade a colonial infantry in Africa? That doesn't make sense. You want to send the guns and medical supplies and whatever else that, you know, that you're using to upgrade that colonial infantry to a full-fledged infantry. You're sending it to where that unit exists, right? So that's why that is. So this is the ship and facility production chart, and we're printing these right on the map. We're also going to have them so that you can purchase them as well. But there's actually going to be 2 of these things on the map. One is going to be up in northern Canada, and the other one's going to be at the opposite side of the map down in the South Pacific on the right-hand side of the board. So you'll have 2 already on the map, but if you really want a 3rd one, you can get one as well. Anyway, the reason I'm showing it to you is because you can also build bases, right? And or you could build ships. But as you see here, like, we don't have nearly as many units on the multi-stage production chart as you have on the 36 game. There just isn't as many. Like, there's no aircraft carriers, you know, there's a lot of the big ticket items just don't exist in this game, right? But anyway, getting back to it though, so like here you've got your major shipyard. It takes 2 turns to build it, and when you place it down, you have to build it for the purpose of lend leasing it. You can't just throw it down on the chart and say, yeah, I've got a major shipyard here. You have to specify, okay, this is for lend lease. But interestingly enough, you don't have to say where it's going though. You just say, I'm building a shipyard for lend lease. Let's say you're the American player. You don't have to say it's going to Britain or Russia or France or wherever you're planning on sending it. You're just building it, right? And that's going to be specified later on. But let's say in your mind, you know, okay, that thing I'm sending to France. That doesn't mean that you can't lend lease to France at the same time. So France is going to get, from the Americans, they're going to get an artillery piece, plus they're building this for them. But because they're not delivering that this turn, they can still build something for France this turn. This is the place units box, right? Where you're going to send your lend lease from. Now, you can send multiple lend leases per turn. Like the Americans, let's stick with them. They could send 1 to France, they could send 1 to Russia, they could send 1 to Italy, and if they were, you know, if Italy was on their side, they could send 1 to Great Britain. But they can only send 1 to each nation, right? Like they couldn't send France an infantry and an artillery. And this guy, remember, he's not being sent yet. He's just being built at this time. And nobody knows except for you or maybe your teammate where that thing's going to go. But when the time does come, when you do pay this off and bring it over here, now if this is going to France, now you can't send this to France as well, because you can only send 1 thing to France per turn, right? As far as lend lease goes. And so that's how it works on the build queue here. We like to call it a build queue, but you can call it a ship and facility production chart if you want. Just a lot of words. Anyway, let's move on. The United States has a number of different rules. The United States isn't played like anybody else in this game. It's played more like a nation in the 36 game, an allied nation where they ramp up to wartime economy. In this game, it's 37 that they'd have to ramp up to, and they use a 6-sided dice to do that. But along the way, just like along the way in the 36 game, they have income determined actions. So when you reach a threshold, a limit, then there's more actions that you can take. In this game, to do with Lend-Lease, there's something called cash and carry, and that you reach at 4 IPPs. Now, the Americans start at 3 IPPs probably. If you play the prequel, then there's ways that you could go below that, right? If you're not having such a good prequel, like, you could theoretically go down to 0. So it's not exactly guaranteed that on the first turn you'll be able to do cash and carry, but it's highly likely that on the first turn the Americans are going to have the ability to do cash and carry. So what cash and carry is that the other nations can purchase units. I'm not using technical terms in the game here. I'm talking about in a real sense. Like, let's say France could purchase a unit for an IPP cheaper and place it in the United States, wherever they want in the United States. Like, there's an artillery. Artillery normally costs 5 IPP. We're going to pay 4 IPP for that game, and we're going to give it to the Americans to give to us. And it has to do with war credit. Basically, what it really means is that the Americans are building it for them, and they're giving them the friends and family discount. So still, you get everything for $1 cheaper. The only things that you can produce in the States, though, would be artillery, air, and naval class units. Like, there's no way you could produce a cheaper infantry, right? Infantry costs what they cost, right? But anyway, you could, the most likely thing that you'd be building there for them would be artillery. Now, it should be noted, though, that this is in addition to the Lend-Lease process. So let's say the France on their turn does build that artillery there, and then the Americans want to Lend-Lease France an artillery as well. So now we have 2 artilleries. Now, when you deliver cash and carry, you deliver it via the Lend-Lease process. So we'll get into that a little bit later, how you deliver Lend-Lease. But in this game, in reality, the cash and carry is different than your Lend-Lease, so that you can Lend-Lease both of these on one turn. One is one that France paid for, and one is one that the United States have paid for. So then you could Lend-Lease both of those units to France on the same turn. And that's the cash and carry at 4 IPP. At 20 IPP, the Americans can start Lend-Leasing to China. And we'll get into that a little bit later. We'll talk about Lend-Lease to China, because that is a little different than the rest of the game. So let's move on. So all of that takes place on the first phase of your turn, on the production phase. When you declare your Lend-Lease, you'll say, okay, this artillery I'm sending to France, and this other piece I'm sending to these people, and this money here I'm Lend-Leasing to this nation over here. You declare all of your Lend-Lease on your production phase. Now, when you get to the last phase, your place units phase, that's when you deliver the Lend-Lease. So what you have to do is you start the Lend-Lease delivery at a factory in your home country, and it has to start there, right? It moves along a supply path to a land zone in the receiving nation's home country. Lend-Lease units have no combat value during delivery, and if somebody gives you verbal permission, you can use other players' ports and railways to deliver Lend-Lease, and also neutral nations. If you or somebody that is aligned to you, or somebody that's aligned to you or friendly to you, they can you can use those to use their railways or the rivers if they have stage 3 on the diplomacy chart. Let's just take a quick look at that. So here, if you're on stage 3 on the diplomacy chart, it's called territory passage. That means that you can go through that territory. And so if you're given permission by the person who owns that, or your nation owns it, then for on stage 3, then you can go through that country as well. And that's going on the land. Now, if you were to go on the water, you have to decide. Let's say it's the Americans again. Let's put that artillery back on there, just because I don't have to root through my box to get more. So let's say you've got it in Washington here where we had it before, and you're going to send it to France. All you have to do is you have to declare which port in France is going to receive it. You know you can send it through this port here, and then it's got to come into a port in France. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that an artillery costs 5. Now, these minor ports, that's the white ones, you can only receive Lend-Lease through those up to 3 IPP in value. So you wouldn't be able to send it to this white port. But the other ones are unlimited. Here's another white port here. The blue ones are unlimited. Those are major ports. So you can send Lend-Lease through those ports of any value, right? Now, that leaves you with this port here in Normandy. There's one in Aquitaine, and there's one down here, isn't there, in southern France. But you have to be able to get through this canal down here, or the Strait of Gibraltar. When you're going through Lend-Lease by the sea, then you have to be able to get there. And you have to take the shortest path available too. You can't just, you know, like if there's a submarine in this territory here and it takes longer to get around it and go through, then you can't do that. You're going to have to go through it, and it's called interdiction. We'll get to that in a second. But anyway, let's say you do want to deliver it to southern France. So it comes from Washington. You got to take the shortest route available, and you're going through the strait and up here and then into southern France, and there you go, your Lend-Lease is delivered. Let's talk about blockade and interdiction now. So the Americans are trying to send this artillery to southern France, and but in the way, like, they have to go through the Strait of Gibraltar, and so there's no way around them getting through these ships other than going through them. They can't just go around Africa and in through the other side, because that's taking them a longer route. Like, they have to take the shortest route, right? So what a blockade is 3 or more surface ships. Now, that does not include submarines, because that's not a surface ship, that's a subsurface ship, right? So it's got to be surface ships, and these are the only 4 surface ships that we have in the game. You got your dreadnought, your pre-dreadnought, your cruiser, and your torpedo boat destroyer, right? All you would need is just 3 ships there, and that would stop that Lend-Lease. So there's no way that you could send that Lend-Lease through there. Now, you could, they could be in the way, along the way, or they could be blockading the port. So if there are 3 of them in the sea zone that is adjacent to the port you're trying to send it through, in this case, we're trying to send it through this major shipyard, then this is a blockaded port. And there's no way that you would be able to send Lend-Lease to that port because it's blockaded. However, if instead of having it blockaded, let's just move these guys out of here, if there was a sub there, where's my sub? So this would be interdiction. The Lend-Lease can still go through there, but you're going to have to, it's going to be risky, right? Like, theoretically, this is on a boat, although you don't need a boat to send Lend-Lease. It's just implied that there is something carrying that unit, whether it's, you know, like a train on land or a truck, or, you know, whether it's a boat that you're sending across the sea. You don't actually use the unit sending it. You just use the piece. But if there's a sub in the way and you have to go through that sub, you can't go around it because it would take you a longer route, and so not allowed, then it's called interdiction. And what'll happen is the player who owns the sub, in this case the Germans, and the player who is sending the Lend-Lease, in this case the Americans, they would both roll a d12, and the one with the highest roll wins, right? So let's say the sub rolls an 8 and the Americans roll a 5. That means that this thing is sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and it was a waste of money for the Americans. They just wasted $5. However, if the Americans rolled the 8 and the Germans rolled a 5, then it doesn't matter. That subject, or that thing goes through there, and it goes up to be delivered into southern France through that major shipyard in southern France. If there's a tie, like let's say both the Germans and the Americans rolled an 8, then the tie goes to the person sending the Lend-Lease. In this case, that would be the Americans. So that Lend-Lease gets through if it's a tie roll. The submarine has to roll higher. Now, that's one thing, is submarine. You could also be a plane on maritime air patrol. So there we go. We got a maritime air patrol ship, and let's say there's a seaplane there, and then maybe the Germans own Gibraltar at the time. So he goes out on maritime air patrol. Again, yeah, the same process happens that we just did with the sub. You can get through there, but you're both going to roll a d12. And if the seaplane gets a higher roll than the Americans do, then sunk to the bottom of the ocean again, right? Now we've seen that if you're interdicting, that artillery would have either made it through that space safely through a roll, or it would have been sunk. But what are the consequences of blockade? So let's just take this back here. Let's put those 3 ships back in there. Okay, if the Lend-Lease is blockaded, then you don't even try. Like, there's no sinking it or anything. What'll happen is, here, let's just move it all the way back there. It'll just go back to Washington there. So what happens then is, on the following turn for the Americans, if you still can't get it through where you want to get it through, like let's say all the ports in France are blockaded and there's no way that you can get it to the home country of France, then the Americans can just decide, okay, I guess we got a new artillery, and that artillery becomes American and not French. So you can't get through, you wait a turn, you still can't get through, you keep that piece for yourself. That's how that works. Let's talk about Lend-Lease now in regards to China and how that works. Now in this game there's a warlord era going on. That's what we call it. It's a warlord era, and that's happening in China. And I will do a whole video on China in the future. I'm waiting for the card deck to be finished being produced and get them into my greedy little hands, and then I'll do the video on China. But when you'll see at the time, it'd be pretty hard for me to do that video without that card deck. Anyway, with regards to Lend-Lease, all you need to know is that there's 2 sides in this war in China. And first of all, you have the nationalists, and that's represented with the nationalist Chinese flag. And on the other side, you have the warlords. And they're all different warlords, and they don't like each other or anything, but for the purposes of this game, they're on the other side, and that side is the Central Powers. So there's points available in China and everything. But anyway, how Lend-Lease works with China is we're going to go with supplies. You can send supplies there, and it's not going to be the regular Lend-Lease process per se. You don't have to trace a supply path. You don't need ports. You don't need anything like that. And the reason for that is because it would almost be impossible for you to get Central Powers supplies here into China. Like they're called Central Powers for a reason. They're kind of in the center of a map, and they're surrounded by everybody. So that would be pretty one-sided of us to do that. And think about the era that they were in, right? Like, the oceans are big, and if you couldn't sneak a boat by everybody there with some supplies on it, then, you know, like, you're not trying very hard. Anyway, you don't have to worry about it. You can just send supplies. The Allies send supplies to the nationalists, and the Central Power send supplies to the warlords. And what does a supply token do? Well, there's three things it can do. So here's a supply token. You can use the supply token if you want or not use it. It's just kind of, okay, I'm sending supplies and my supplies are, you know, you might as well just put the unit on. But anyway, actually this would help to put in your place units box. But again, you could just place the unit in there too. So for the supplies token, you could get, and I'll just do the nationalists here, you could get a militia. That's one thing you could do. Or you could take a militia and with that supplies token, upgrade him to an infantry. Or you could take that infantry and upgrade him to a mountain infantry. And that's what you get for a supplies token, is one of those three things. There's nothing else that you can send to China at this point. But once the Americans get their income determined actions up to 20, like once they reach 20, then they can lend lease to China whatever they want. So like they could send them over an artillery if they wanted to. But they're doing a regular lend lease now, right? So it can be interdicted, it can be blockaded, so they have to be able to get it there. It's regular lend lease now. And also, if Japan declares, like if Japan goes Central Powers and they declare war on China, then the allies will all send lend lease via the regular lend lease rules. They will not be sending supply tokens anymore. They will be sending lend lease now. So Japan can, in theory, block the ports if they want, but that's going to piss the Americans off, and you know what that means. That means the Americans are going to get more money and their income's going to go up faster. So there's a pretty heavy cost to Japan declaring war on China in this game, and that's the way it was in the war. Like, the Allies did put an awful lot of pressure on Japan not to declare war on China, and they can do it in this game, but it's going to cost them. So supplies token, for the most part, is what you're going to be doing, and whether it's sent to the nationalists or whether it's sent to any warlord you want. Like, you don't have to send it through a port or anything. You could send it to this warlord up here if you wanted to, even though he's landlocked and doesn't look like you could get it there. You could send him to this one if you want. It doesn't matter. Just once per turn, calendar turn, you could send supplies, which will get you a militia or upgrade to an infantry or upgrade to a mountain infantry. And that is how it works in China. So that's it for this video, folks. Thanks for joining me. Now you know how Lend-Lease works in the game Global War 1914, and as you can see, some of the rules are different. In the next video I'm going to be doing, that's probably the biggest change in the rules between 36 and 14, between those two games, and that will be purchasing and placing units. Purchasing units is much the same, but placing them vastly different. And a lot of that has to do with the manpower restrictions that they had in World War I, and that is reflected in this game. But thanks for joining me today. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.